Hey folks, this is Vince with Dad's Gaming Addiction, and today we're going to take a very quick look at the game Roll Through the Ages, the Bronze Age. This game is for 1 to 4 players, ages 8 and up, and the average play time is about 30 to 45 minutes. Now this game is a little like Civilization for the PC, except with dice. Basically, each player will be using dice to build cities, monuments, wonders, different things like that, in order to grow the most prosperous civilization. Let's just take a quick moment to look at the components and see how the game is played. While there aren't that many components to this game, there's actually a lot going on here, and it could be overwhelming to first-time players. But to sum this up as best I can, you'll be tracking the progress of your civilization using these pegboards and a score sheet, and these pegs go along with this pegboard. And the pegboard, for the most part, just tracks the goods and the food that you'll be earning and consuming throughout the game. On the other hand, your score pad, there's a lot of them, so you don't have to worry about that. Your score pad will actually track almost everything else. Basically, the number of cities that you've built, developments, monuments, disasters. So you'll be tracking those things on the left. And on the right-hand side, you've got some guides here. You can put your name. It'll list the order of play, what the dice mean, the disasters. Different number of skulls mean different disasters, and I'll explain that in a minute. Game end, and you can actually put your final score down here to see how you fared along with everybody else. Lastly, I mentioned this already, but there are dice in the game, and there are a number of different symbols on them that mean a number of different things. Players will be rolling these every turn to earn things like food, goods. They'll be able to roll for labor, just so that they can build cities and monuments, different things like that. Now, setting up the game is actually pretty simple. Each player will receive a pegboard, and the first 5 pegs will go on the left side here, on the 0 part, for all of the goods. And the food peg will go on the number 3. Each player will receive 3 dice to represent the 3 cities that they start with, and each player will receive a score pad. Now, it's important to note that the starting player will put a star somewhere on their score sheet just to indicate that they went first. That'll factor in at the end of the game. Also, depending on how many people are playing, you'll have to cross off certain monuments just for balance purposes. Now, a player's turn is broken up into 5 main parts, and I'll try and sum these up as best I can. But step 1 involves the player rolling the dice that they have and earning goods and food. And that's basically all you'll have to do for the first part of your turn. It's worth noting that when you're rolling the dice, you have the ability to roll them 2 more times before you have to actually accept the final results. However, if any of those happen to turn up as skulls, you'll have to place those aside and keep the skulls. But you are free to re-roll up to 2 more times if anything else should come up on the dice. Now, to track your progress on your pegboard in regards to food and goods, what will happen is you'll simply move the food peg to the right for every food that you earn. Let's say a player were to earn, in this case, you've got 3 wheat. So let's just say, as an example, this player earned 3 wheat. It would go up 3 spaces to the 6. Now let's say that a player earned 4 goods on this turn. Goods being represented by these here. Basically, what you'll do is you'll move 1 peg over for each row. So in this case, it would be 1, 2, 3, 4 goods. On a future turn, let's say a player earned 3 goods. They would start from the bottom again. 1, 2, 3. Pretty easy. Step number 2 of a player's turn involves feeding cities and resolving disasters. To feed cities, you'll take a look at your pegboard again, and you'll move the peg down to the left a certain number of slots, depending on how many dice that you have. If you have 3 cities, for example, you'd move your peg down 3 spaces to indicate that you used 3 food. It's 1 food per city. Also, you'll resolve any disasters that might have occurred. Disasters being driven by the skulls that you roll, or if you happen to run out of food to feed your cities. In this case, there's actually a nice little handy guide here on the score sheet. If you have no food to feed your cities, you would lose 1 point per city. And what you would do is you would simply put X's down here along the bottom to indicate that disasters occurred during the game. Also, if you happen to roll 1 skull, there'd be no effect. 2 skulls indicates a drought, and that is minus 2 points, so you'd check off 2 X's. 3 pestilence, 3 points for an opponent that actually gets put against the opponent's score sheet. 4 skulls, invasion, that's minus 4 points, so you would X out 4 boxes down here. And anything more than that is you'd lose all of the goods on your pegboard. So obviously skulls can be nasty customers, so you want to try and avoid rolling those if at all possible. Step 3 of a player's turn involves building cities and monuments. For every person that a player rolls on their dice that they decide to keep, they'll be able to check off that many boxes under their cities and monuments section. Let's see if I can zoom in on this. Alright, now if a player manages to check off all the boxes for one particular city or this gray box, they'll be able to build another city. So if this player, for example, were to check off these 3 boxes under this gray city, they'd be able to collect a 4th dice. Keep in mind, however, that the more dice that you earn, the more mouths that you have to feed and the more food that you'll have to use every turn to feed your civilization. So having more dice will potentially allow you to earn more goods and more coin and different things like that, but you'll also have to factor in the cost of feeding your entire civilization. Now, while you're doing that, you can also check off boxes under your monument section. And when a player manages to check off all of the boxes on a particular monument, they'll earn the points listed along the bottom. The first player to build that particular monument will earn the number of points listed here. They'd simply circle that number. Everyone else will have to cross it out. The second person to build that very same monument will earn the second number listed, and everyone else has to cross that out. And that actually factors in along the right-hand side here. There's a section for monuments under your score. So building monuments is one way to increase your score at the end of the game. Step 4 of a player's turn allows them to buy developments. Developments being this particular section on the score pad. Let's see if I can zoom in on that. Alright. Now, players can spend coin or trade in goods, and I'll show you that in a minute. There's a cost here. They'll be able to pay this particular amount to check off these boxes, and not only does these developments earn them points for endgame scoring, developments being this first part here, but it also has varying effects that'll help players out during the game. Like this leadership part or development will allow a player to re-roll 1 die after the last roll. Medicine allows pestilence to have no effect on you. Pestilence being this part under the disasters, where if you roll 3 skulls, it's a minus 3 points for all of your opponents. So there are some counters to the disasters and skulls that players will roll under the developments part. Now, how do you earn developments? Well, you have to buy them, and to do that, you'll be using a combination of the goods on your pegboard and any coin that you happen to roll on the dice that you keep. Coins are worth 7 7 gold, so just keep that in mind. Now, in order to trade in things on your pegboard, you'll have to take a look at the small number located under each slot. You'll see here, like for example, this has the number 3 under this bottom row. This peg here has the number 6, number 9 for this one, 4 for this one. That is the value of that particular good. Now let's say that you wanted to purchase leadership, which has a value of 10. You'd have to trade in goods that are valued for that particular amount. No change is given, by the way, so you have to trade in an equal value or more. Now to trade in 10, I could do a number of things here. I could trade in this 6 and this 4. I could move that back 1 and move that back all the way to the end, and that would be 6 and 4 is 10. I could then purchase that development. Had I rolled a coin for my roll, this is worth 7, I could use that 7 and trade in this 3, move that back to the beginning. That would equal 10, and I could then check off that development. So there are a number of ways to earn developments, either by rolling dice or by earning goods. Finally, the fifth part of a player's turn involves the discarding of goods if they happen to have more than 6. Each icon on your pegboard represents 1 good. So in this case, a player, let's see how many he has. He has 1 of this, 2 of this, 2 of that, and 2 of this, so 6, 7. So this player would have 7 goods, and because it's over 6, he'd have to discard 1. So in order to discard, a player may choose whichever good he wants to move pegs back. So he'll go ahead and choose this one. Let's say he just decides to do that. Now he has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and now he's under the limit and he's okay. And that ends a player's turn. Now, I knew I threw a lot of information at you, but once you get a few turns under your belt, you'll start to see how all of the different game mechanics start coming together. But that's basically all there is to it. Players will be taking turns, rolling dice, collecting goods, then spending goods, earning food, then spending food, buying cities, developments, and building monuments in order to score points, and trying to basically build up their civilization as best they can. The game ending condition occurs whenever a player has built their 5th development, or when all of the developments, or all of the monuments rather, have been built at least one time. Once that occurs, everyone will take one final turn up to the person that started the game. As I mentioned earlier, the starting player will have a star somewhere on their score sheet. That player will not take that turn. Everyone else will get to take one final turn. And players will go ahead and add up their score by looking at the developments and the monuments and any bonuses they might have earned. Bonuses can be earned under the development section, like architecture, for example. You get bonus points, 1 per monument. The Empire bonus allows a player 1 bonus point per city they have. So they'll be adding all of those points up. And they'll also be subtracting out the number of disaster boxes they've checked. And the person with the most points at the end of the game wins. And there you have it. That's just a very quick look at the game Roll Through the Ages, the Bronze Age. I didn't get to cover everything found in the manual, and I didn't get to cover all of the mechanics in detail, but at least this will give you a rough idea as to how the game plays and how the different turns and mechanics come together. You can check out my review at www.dadsgamingaddiction.com, or you can simply click on the link in the below description. That'll take you there as well. This is Vince. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next time.